How's it going, everyone? My name is Jovani Dante Griego, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be removing not one, but two engines out of my cars here. So I'm basically back to the point where all my cars are broken again, and it's time to do something about it. We have our 1979 Chevrolet Camaro here. This one, I will show you guys some footage, but this thing is knocking on heaven's door. Like, this thing is about to enter the space program and send a rod to the moon. Whereas this truck right here, it's not as bad. It's a very mild knock, but I want to go ahead and address it before it becomes a bigger problem. This is my 1976 C30 Dually crew cab. And yeah, both these cars, they're great cars. This one, however, if you guys have seen my last video, this one has been a nightmare for me. This car I've dubbed the Heartbreaker Camaro because this thing, every time I get it running, something happens, and this time it just happened to be that this fresh 350 that I just put in it just started knocking. I'll get into both of these a little bit more, and I'll show you guys kind of what's going on and how they ended up this way. But for now, we need to start tearing into these things. Like I said, we got a lot of work to do. I'd like to get this done very soon because I have a ton of projects that I need to get finished. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so it's already like 90 degrees outside, so this is going to be not fun of a project. I'm going to take you guys under the hood of each one of these. Under this one, we have a small block Chevy 350, and under this one, we have a big block Chevy 454. Both of these are going to be relatively the same process. We're going to leave the transmissions in place on each of them. This one should be a pretty straightforward, just take out, swap in. This one's going to be a little bit more involved, where we're going to have to tear into the engine and kind of see what's going on with it. All right, so let's go ahead and pop the hood on the Camaro here. This is an 010 small block Chevy. You know, it's a pretty good block. Aluminum heads. All this I think I have in another video when we put this thing back together the last time, but maybe not. Camaro, when I bought it, had a 305 in it that we blew up as well. So this is now the second time that we'll be taking the engine out to fix it. This does have a cam in it. It has a 7.4 swap LS style cam, so 7 and 4 cylinders are swapped, makes it run a little bit better. Let's hope that that cam is still usable after this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this thing for you guys so you can hear it. It is not pleasant, but just to give you guys an idea of how bad this thing actually is. I don't know how well you guys heard that, but it's bad. I mean, it's knocking pretty dang hard here. As far as the Dually though, the Dually actually isn't that bad. The Dually has a very slight little knock. I believe it just ran a little bit low on oil, maybe starting to wear a bearing down. So let's take a look at that one and, you know, compare them. All right, and this is what's underneath the hood of the C30. I believe this is the original engine to the truck. This is just a stock 454 big block Chevy. We're running a 650 Holley carburetor on this thing. So nothing too crazy on this, and we're gonna get into what we're gonna drop into this thing. But basically this thing just needs to be reliable. It doesn't need to have crazy performance gains or anything. I just want this thing to be reliable. So let's go ahead and give this thing a crank and we'll see how it sounds. So I'm gonna leave my microphone right here. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear what I'm talking about. So that may not have been picked up on microphone and on camera, but there is just this very slight little bottom end knock on this thing. And I want to go ahead and address that before it gets too bad. All right, so here's the thing. I'm no stranger to blown engines, right? I would probably still run this engine, but from what I know from tearing apart engines and stuff like this now, once you have a little bit of a knock, it doesn't get any better, right? Now, if this was my only vehicle, or if you're in a similar situation where like this is your only vehicle, if you're running an old engine like this and you have a little slight knock, you can throw some honey in the engine. You could kind of do what you can to mitigate the issue. But at the end of the day, it's only going to get worse eventually, right? It might not be tomorrow, it might not be today, but eventually you're going to get a bigger knock, right? And then Eventually after that, you're going to have a meeting with Uncle Rodney where that rod is now sticking out of the side of the block's trash and everything. So it might not sound like much now, but I do want to get this engine out of here because this is a good 454 block, right? 454s are not easy to come by. They're way more expensive than a small block Chevy. So taking this engine out now, we have an engine to swap into it, an actually much better engine to swap into it. It's just going to give me the opportunity to take this engine, tear it apart, change bearings or whatever needs to be changed, possibly the crank, rotating assembly, all that. And then we still have a good 454 engine here. And then on the other hand, you have the Camaro here. The only way this thing could get worse is if the actual rod shot out of the side of the block, which I don't want to happen either, because on this guy, I don't mind throwing a rotating assembly at this thing because rotating assemblies can be had fairly inexpensively on a small block Chevy. Probably not in this video, but in the next videos, we're going to go through that engine and, determine what we're going to do to it. And I'll show you guys the price and everything on that. I'd like to be in and out of this engine for about $1,500 if possible. I would like to keep this running as a small block Chevy for as long as possible, right? I've already proven that with just this car alone. Now, this is the second engine that we're putting in this, but realistically, I could have LS swapped this thing for a lot less money than the small block Chevy at this point. Even just to be comparable as power and reliability now, new carburetor, new intake, new all this stuff on this would have probably got me just your base LS 5.3 swap or 4.8 swap in here. This one will remain carbureted. This one will also be carbureted for now, but I have some plans that I'll be talking about you guys later on. But enough talking, it's only getting hotter outside. I think it's time to start tearing into these. All right, so as you saw yesterday, my friend Danny came over and helped me out a little bit. We got it to the point where we can basically start removing the engine now. I just removed the last 2 engine bolts. For some of the parts that you didn't see, obviously you got to remove the bell housing bolts from the transmission. You got to remove the starter, and you got to remove those torque converter bolts. So all that's been done. We're down to basically just the bare engine by itself. This thing should start pulling up now with any luck. All right, that's just coolant. You'll get that on them big jobs. Moss up. Oh, this hose needs to get taken off. Hold on. All right, so we've got the engine out. It's back there on the stand already torn apart. Haven't opened up the oil pan yet to see what's going on with it, but took it all apart, got it on a stand. Now what we have here is going to be our replacement engine for the 454 that was in here. And what this is a Gen 6 454. So this engine came out of trucks that are from 96 up to about 2000. So it's not a very common engine, but there are some great features of this engine. It's a full hydraulic roller camshaft. It's got a reluctor, it's got a crank sensor, so it's very close to like what the LS is now. These ran off of a 4X crank reluctor wheel. Reason why we're waiting on this just a couple days is because we're waiting on the EFI Connection 24X reluctor ring. And that might just be a little hint about what's to come on this engine later on. But as you can see, we've gone ahead and thrown a carburetor intake on it for now. I had one laying around anyways, so we're going to run it off of a carb and an HEI for now. And that's kind of the great things about these engines is you can run them. They're basically identical to an old 454 like we had in there, but you have the added advantage of being able to run, you know, a reluctor wheel and convert it over to fuel injection. These were factory fuel injected. They were actually sequential injection as well, so that's, you know, all a benefit. 8 injectors on the engine, which is very nice, as it wasn't TBI or anything like that. And it's purple. It's purple because that's the color my daughter wanted to put in there. So there's a couple things we need to do here. We got our reluctor in there. We still need to change the rear main seal. This thing actually was the engine that came out of that big 3500 HD truck that we had a while back on the channel. I ended up just pulling the engine, getting rid of the truck. But there's a couple things we need here to finish this up. We need a couple of adapters, or we need a couple of hose fittings. We need to find some plugs for these holes if we're not going to use them. We've got the reluctor in there, so that's good. I wanted to get that in now because you have to drop the oil pan on these to get the timing cover off. We do still need to change the rear main seal. It's got a new oil pan gasket, new timing cover gasket. We're going to get new water pump gaskets, thermostat housing, thermostat. Basically what I wanted is I wanted this engine to be able to just kind of drop in without stealing too many parts of that other engine. There will be plans for that other engine eventually, hopefully. So got our own intake, all that stuff. Went ahead and painted the valve covers, kind of just gave it a Craigslist rebuild, just kind of quick spray and pray. And what we're going to do now is we're going to move over to the truck itself, kind of clean that up a little bit, clean up some of the wiring, and get ready to drop this thing in. So anytime, you know, you have an engine out of a truck or a car, it gives you an opportunity to kind of just freshen things up a little bit. What we did is we power washed the heck out of this thing. There's still a little bit of grime and stuff, but I'm not too concerned about that stuff. And what I'm doing right now, if you're curious, is I'm going to wrap my harnesses in aluminum foil. And what we're going to do is we're going to spray down the engine bay firewall. We're actually going to be doing black, and you guys might be saying, well, your truck's white, why are you going to use black? It's because of this stuff. This factory kind of sealant that they used, it's just, you spray with white, and it's just going to be bumpy. It's going to look like a bed coating. I'm not too concerned about any of it, really. You can sit here and try to scrape this stuff off, sand it down, scrape it, whatever. The pressure washer took some of it off, but you would have to have like a really high pressure washer in order to get that stuff off. You can see like wherever I spray with the pressure washer, it's able to get some of it, but it's all really stuck on there. And so I'm going to paint, and then what we're going to do is kind of get our cables situation manageable, get everything ready for when we drop the engine. We know what goes where. This truck has been kind of patched along for several years. Wire has been added, wire has been removed. And so we just have the opportunity now that the engine's out, I can get in here and I can kind of just clean everything up. Not too often that you're able to be inside the engine bay, become a 454 and be able to do this stuff. This isn't going to be a SEMA build. This isn't going to be anything crazy. This is just going to be my hauler, basically. So what I'm using here is just some Krylon Fusion all-in-one paint primer. Nothing fancy. It's like $9 a can. And we're just gonna kind of just go at it. Black hides everything. Black hides rust. Any little imperfection is just gonna disappear. Not worried about any of my components here. Windshield wiper, motor. I don't care. It's already black. Trying to go for light coats. That orange wire just became black. but I'm not worried about it. And paint our brake booster too. Might as well, we're here. There we go, brand new brake booster. Just installed. There we go, new steering column just installed. Yep, There we go, that's all new. I just stuck my hand in the paint. That's fine, we'll just fix that. Everything over there is already black. We can just make it all look brand new. Yep. All right. Oh, you know what? I forgot I need to install a master cylinder. And wow, look at the difference. White firewall, it's just always gonna look black. It's always gonna look grimy. Black firewall, never gonna know if it's dirty or not. I won't know. And yeah, all joking aside, I mean, this is probably the best thing you could do to an old engine bay like this, and it doesn't really cost you more than a can of paint. 1 coat, 2 coats, just redo any areas real quick. Reality is, not many people are gonna see this anyway, but looks nice that it's black, so we'll leave it at that. All right, guys, so I got this new rear main seal here. Like I said earlier, these are one-piece rear main seal or one-piece crankshafts. So what that means is your older 454s like we pulled out of there, it's going to be 2 pieces. You can drop the oil pan, take one piece off, and then you can kind of fish out the other one underneath the main cap. But for these, they're one piece, kind of like an LS. The only difference is with an LS, you have the whole timing cover or the whole back cover that you could take off and remove to replace that seal. Now for this, what I've gone ahead and done, and you might be able to tell, but I've drilled 2 or 3 small holes right in the center of the gasket. And what I have here is a puller, and it's got this little screw attachment on here. And you can tell here I've already pulled this one a little bit. But what I'm doing is I'm just shoving this, twisting it into the hole, and just ever so lightly just pulling that out. And you see how that's coming out? And we move over to the next one, find my hole, screw it in till it bites, and then just same thing. That one didn't bite. Now, obviously, you're going to get a little bit of metal shavings. It's not the end of the world, but obviously try to just be mindful of that. That one's not pulling out, so we're going to go up here. Again, find our hole, screw it in, and just tap. And there you go. Rear main seal's out. We can also use some kind of pry tool or whatever, get something in there and pry it out. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to get that rear main seal on and just start tapping around, get it flush. All right, so now on reinstall, we've got our seal pushed up against, as far as we can kind of go without driving it in. But before we go any further, I'm actually going to pull it back just a little bit. And we're just going to do some little dabs of RTV. We're going to smear it all around. And this is just going to be an extra little seal in between the seal and the block there. Just get our finger and just kind of, I could use a little bit more there, I think. But we're not trying to get a bead or anything. We're just trying to get a nice little layer. Okay. Now that we got that, I also have a can of plaster. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to very lightly just give it a little squirt. Oh, this isn't working. There we go. Just give it a little squirt in there. And what that's going to do is that's just going to lubricate the inside diameter. Now, you can probably get a 4-inch piece of PVC right there or whatever. I'm just going to use a little socket on an extension. And we're just going to go around, very lightly. Just give it some little taps. Just want to be even. We're going to go till we're flush. You could hear the noise difference there. And then see if we can use the extension itself and go just a little bit more so it sits inside that ring. and that should be good. Looks pretty even. It's a little bit out right down here. And go. There we go. There we go. Basically, our socket can't fit in there anymore, so that's kind of how we know we're good. And that's a rear main seal. Done quick and dirty, 5 minutes. Of course, you would have to remove the transmission to do this, flex plate, all that, but quick, dirty, no special tools required. And now we got a new rear main seal on this. So I ran into a little bit of a dilemma here. What we have here, this is our oil filter housing on the side of the new Big Block Chevy, so Gen 6. What I needed is I needed a way to adapt our oil pressure, original oil pressure gauge, basically, from the truck to this new engine. Well, luckily, you know, these big blocks are all relatively the same, even though they're, you know, this one came out about 30 years after the other one. Other block had this, basically it's probably 1/2 inch or 3/8 MPT to probably a, I don't know, 3/8 MPT. Well, this block had these little, they're square drive plugs. And what it is, it's a 5/16 square drive plug. This block has them here, and there's some in the back. They're oil galley plugs, whatever. I went and I could not find square drive sockets that would work on this. So what I ended up doing, went to Home Depot real quick, got a Husky 5/16 hex socket, and I basically just shaved the edges down a little bit. And what that ended up doing is that fit pretty well. I mean, it's not the best fit, but it was good enough. I don't need to reuse this plug for anything. So it was enough to get the plug out. And now we should be able to grab our other socket or our other plug here and put this in here. And this is going to allow us to adapt the original sender to our blocks. So just a quick little tech tip for you guys. If you guys are ever in the need of a square drive plug, grab a 5/16 hex bit, shave off 2 sides with a grinder, and you're good to go. We're about at the point where I think I can drop this thing in now. You can see we went ahead and added our water pump, pulleys, all that. We still have our alternator and AC compressor bracket and stuff to mount up here. I can do that with the engine in the truck. But anyway, enough talking. Let's get this thing in here. All right, and then I already remembered I need to jack up the truck too, but we can do that in a few. All right, we're bottomed out there. I got to get my jack and lift the truck up again. Obviously made some progress in the meantime. Very close, but I think I have to remove those spark plugs. I just don't have enough room on that side to get the headers to move around. We're basically almost on the engine mount on that side. So I'm going to grab a spark plug socket and take those out. Okay, there's one. I think this side has more room to get around them. Yeah, this side has plenty of room, so I'm not even going to worry about that side. Let's go for it. So, okay, that's pretty close. The engine has to fall back a little bit. Yeah, so we're pretty close. Let's say go down a little bit. Sometimes it's all just in how the engine wants to fall into place. Sometimes you got to push it a little bit. Sometimes you got to just let it fall. One of my favorite tools to use when doing these is just a big pry bar like this. And you'll be able to kind of get on the engine a little bit. Kind of get it around the headers and stuff. Obviously, try not to scratch the paint too much. But it'll give you some wiggle room. Okay, so that should be, yep. And you just tap the bolt in somehow. There. Really just playing with the angles. That's all you're really doing. Okay, so we've gotten really close. We've got both bolts in, halfway basically. They just need to come through the back there. I'm gonna go ahead and play with the transmission alignment a little bit and just see if I can get the engine to kind of snug up against the transmission, and that should kind of get us in the right area there. All right, well, the installation went fabulous. Finally got those bolts to go through the mounts there. Everything lined up perfectly. Engine's basically almost mounted up to the transmission, just missing some bolts. Except I ran into one little problem, and that's that this engine's got to come right back out because the flex plate from this 454 is for an 11-inch converter, and on the truck itself we got a 10-inch converter. Now, I thought about swapping on the other flex plate from the old Big Block. No go, because this engine has a different balance than the other ones. It wouldn't probably be the biggest thing in the world, but it would probably cause maybe a little bit of a vibration, which I'm just at this point not really willing to cope with. We've hit the 90% mark. We're almost done. I ordered up another flex plate from Summit, so that thing will be here in a couple days. So pause for a second. I'm gonna have to cover this engine up. Looks like it's gonna rain pretty soon, so we'll get this engine covered up so no water gets in the intake, and we'll just get back to it when we get that flex plate. Now in the meantime, this thing still has to get torn apart, so why not make the best out of the situation, and we'll go ahead and start ripping this thing apart, get this small block out of here, which should be easier. Last time I did this, I did end up pulling the front fascia off, the front bumper. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that again, or if I have a way to get the engine hoist in, maybe from the side here. I don't know. I've got dirt to my right here, and I've got the truck to the left there, so not a lot of room, but I'm sure I could probably make something work. I'll probably have to remove the hood to get it out, but let's just see what happens here. This one should be a lot quicker than that one. I can access this one a lot easier. Smaller engine, everything. So let's get started. Pull that carb off, pull all those accessories off, and get going. All right, so I just had Ellie and the kids help me take the hood off of the car. This is the only angle I could get to the engine right now. So we're gonna try to snag it from the side. I don't have a lot of room, but I have the car jacked up. I can raise it more if I have to slide the engine back out the front, but let's just see what happens here. Just gotta make sure we keep getting everything out of the way. We'll pull the dipstick out for the trans. Very close. Actually, hold on. Looks like the car tilted back when I did that. Whoa. Okay. That might be good enough. Yeah. There we go. Now I can swing. Okay. Oh, that's so close to hitting. There's a couple more pumps. And now we should be able to swing it. There we go. And we're out. All right. Well, besides the mess, I got that out without much problems. You know, going in is always a little bit trickier than coming out. You can tell I've been dripping oil. Something's been leaking on this. I don't know. I've been thinking about it over the last couple days, and I got to decide whether or not this is going to be the block that we keep, or if maybe we put something else in here. I know that from the sounds of it, we're going to need a new crank, which means we might as well get new rods. At that point, we might as well get a whole rotating assembly. And so, you know, we're looking at about $1,000 in parts just to get this thing back up and running. I might have something in the garage that will fit in here and might be a little bit cheaper to run, but I don't know. There's a toss up here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. But as for right now, we're waiting on a flex plate for that truck, and that truck should be up and running. And then we got to tear this thing apart and see what's wrong with it. But I think that's where I'm going to call this video for now. That way I can get this uploaded, and then we'll come back and we'll finish this Dually and we'll finish this Camaro, or we'll make a plan for the Camaro. And you know, that's it for now. I think I've done enough. So thank you guys for watching. As always, if you guys enjoy the videos, please drop me a like, drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think I should do with this Camaro. And if you guys have any questions, you can find me on my Facebook, facebook.com/Jovani Dante Griego, Instagram at Jovani Dante, and my website, JovaniDanteGriego.com. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video very soon here. We'll make a plan for this. See you guys.